2024 Tour de France, Stage 6 to Dijon. Might have looked simple on paper. A mostly flat stage heading north here to the town of Snell's chocolate and Dijon mustard. But it was anything but simple. Dylan Groenewegen won the stage. The Dutchman, the Dutch champion of Team Jayco Alula. But a lot of chaos happened out there on the road and down to the final moments. Let's recount the stage, what happened out there on the road from the start here to the finish, and then talk about the drama in the sprint. Now around 80 kilometers to 70 kilometers out, the escape, the minor escape that we had during the day had already been swept up. Jonas Abrahamsen, well, he attacked early on the only categorized climb of the day, a categorized 4 climb, to add more points to his points jersey. The Norwegian fans love him, Team Uno X rider. But we were looking at 80 kilometers to go. Tadej Pogacar and his team were put to the test, and, well, frankly, they fell because it was Visma and Red Bull for Primoz Roglic, Visma for Jonas Vingegaard, who dropped the hammer, and Tadej found himself isolated. Maybe the only rider he had in there was Niels Pollitt. All the other riders were cut off in a second peloton back behind. And for around 10 kilometers, it continued like this. The riders had been going mostly northbound, but when it turned, they had crosswinds and they took advantage. And Tadej, well, showed weakness in his team. His team is made up of strong climbers, but often we've seen in the past and also in this year's Tour de France that his team seems a bit disorganized. We saw that with Juan Ayuso the other day on the Galibier stage when João Almeida was looking back to him, say, come on, man, get up here, help with our work, help set up Tadej Pogacar. Well, thankfully for Tadej and Team UAE, things came back together and the crosswind section didn't last long and it wasn't enough to distance Tadej. But then it happened again around 45 kilometers out. We saw another turn in the road and the teams were at the front working it again, trying to dislodge Tadej, trying to see him lose time on the day. It didn't work out. And also in those moments, we saw a crash heading into a left-hand turn. There were some road dividers on the road, some plastic things. I hate that. They were pushed out in the road and the riders didn't see it, or something happened there and the riders got caught up in it. And also in that was Jonas Abrahamsen and Fred Wright, who was also involved in a crash just yesterday, the British rider from Team Bahrain Victorious. Abrahamsen, we see him later on up in the sprint working for Team Uno X. And now I want to focus on the sprint because we had a good one today. Setting things up, heading into those final 5 kilometers, where at 5 kilometers out, the GC teams can relax because at their GC time is safe if they're involved in a crash or they have a puncture. So we see the GC teams leading up to the 5K mark, Red Bull, Visma, all the big teams are there to protect their riders, set them up. Also, Team UAE was riding well. Then it's over to the sprint teams. Team Astana, after the 35th career Tour de France win for Mark Cavendish yesterday, we're really rallying behind the British sprint great and trying to set him up today. As too was Uno X, really doing the job so well in the red and yellow colors for veteran sprinter Alexander Kristoff. Heading into town, also in the team, they have Soren Warrenskald, who's also a sprint option. Heading into town, we saw Jonas Abrahamsen in the polka dot jersey doing a heck of a lead out. Into that final K, wow, this was good. Mostly a straight shot here to the finish in Dijon. Only thing they had to contend with was a roundabout, and they had it blocked off, so all the riders had to go around to the right-hand side of the roundabout. We saw the team of Uno X drilling it into that roundabout. Mark Cavendish was already some positions back, but he was holding on to Jasper Philipsen's wheel for a while. We saw Mathieu van der Poel, the world champion, right there in front of Philipsen, getting ready to set him up. And then right out of that roundabout, today, Mathieu van der Poel found his mojo. The mojo we saw last year, doing that super lead out for Philipsen to help Philipsen get 4 stage wins. And they were there on the right, drilling in it. Now at this point, what we've seen earlier in this year with Mark Cavendish, he seemed to be lost in the traffic and he didn't contend in today's sprint, didn't place up high. We turn our attention to Gourmet. We turn our attention to Dylan Groenewegen. Don't be confused. He's got the red, white, and blue jersey and national champion, so you might lose him in the bunch. He's got his orange and green team of Jayco Alula there, with also Luka Mescik or Elmar Reindeers doing the final lead out work. And Dylan Groenewegen charging up the left-hand side. Over on the right-hand side, Mathieu van der Poel was finishing his work Wout van Aert from Team Visma Bike having to do things almost all on his own because the team's all around Jonas Vingegaard. Besides, he has Christophe Laporte who's helping out a bit, but he charges at one point up on the right-hand side. He's in that gray and dark colored blue jersey. It looks a lot like the Alpecin de Koenig jersey of Jasper Philipsen, and then you see Jasper Philipsen there right to Wout's left and starts to close out Wout van Aert. Now here's our drama on the day, because it was a photo finish between Dylan Groenewegen. We saw him over there on the left-hand side of the road. We saw Jasper Philipsen over on the right-hand side of the road. Wout van Aert at this point was out of the picture. Then in the middle we see the green jersey of Biniam Girmay, the Eritrean rider who won the other day in Torino, all charging towards the line. Well, it's Dylan Groenewegen on the left there in a photo finish with Jasper Philipsen, gets him by a little less than a half a wheel's length in the photo finish when we're looking at the photo finish. And Biniam Girmay a little further back, a great sprint by Binny, preserving that green jersey. He's the first black rider ever, the first Eritrean rider ever to wear the green jersey in the Tour de France. Looking great. I love his style. I love his charisma that he brings to this race. A big supporter of Girmay, but he didn't pull it off today. It wasn't to be two for Girmay. Instead, it was Dylan Groenewegen who got the win in an exciting photo finish with Jasper Philipsen. But wait, what are your thoughts on this? When you looked at the sprint and you saw Jasper Philipsen closing, boxing out Wout van Aert, was it too much? Well, the jury thought so, and yes, they relegated Jasper Philipsen to the back of the sprint bunch. When we're looking at the results there, Jasper Philipsen, after a tight finish, and I saw him there afterwards, he was super upset that he didn't get the win, and would have been more upset later when he found out the jury, the UCI jury, relegated him to the back of the pack. Now this comes one day after Mark Cavendish made that massive veer from right to left in the sprint in stage 5. What are your thoughts on yesterday and on Jasper Philipsen today? Let me know. But it was a big day out for world champion Mathieu van der Poel. Found his legs and was able to deliver a great lead out despite Jasper Philipsen, his teammate, being regulated. And a big day out for those GC teams, both Red Bull and Visma, putting Tadej Pogacar under pressure. And we love the racing. And of course, a big day out for our winner, Dylan Groenewegen, the Dutch champion, Team Jayco Alula, winning here in Dijon at the 2024 Tour de France.